Okay, so first of all, I would like to welcome all of you to this seminar. Thank you very much to join this seminar at this Friday morning. This is actually going to be an interesting topic, and we have Dr. Ali with us, newly joined to the Department of Economics, but he is not new to our department. So today, what we are going to do, we are going to have this topic. We are going to talk. I think our Dr. Ali is going to present on application of meta-analysis in economics and finance research. I think what we are going to learn today is actually, first of all, it's about the meta-analysis. We are going to talk about how you combine evidences across different sources and studies. That is something quite interesting to learn from you, Dr. Ali. And then, of course, the other side of the topic is actually OIC. Always, we of course, we are part, whether we like it or not, we are part of the OIC, previously called Organization of Islamic Conference, and later it was named as Organization of Islamic Cooperations, Nizam al-Ta'awuni. So it's an interesting topic that you are going to talk about, the OIC stock market. I hope everyone will get benefit from this talk. And let me just introduce you, Dr. Ali. I think, of course, he is a complete product of IIUM. He did his bachelor's and master's and PhD from IIUM. Mashallah, he has done a lot of, of course, he's been in this area for quite long. And he also works, his research interests cover financial economics, financial market, and macro economy, economic integration, and of course the meta-analysis, what we are going to learn today. Last year he finished his PhD. Now this year he joined our Department of Economics. So I just want to pass the mic to you, Dr. Ali. The floor is yours. فليتفضل مشكورا.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for your invitation, Dr. Aslam. First of all, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam to everyone. In this blessing day, Alhamdulillah, I'm giving a chance to share an interesting topic that I'm currently working on, which is a meta-analysis. When I was invited to do a seminar, the first thing I thought about is meta-analysis, because this is an area where we have been doing similar things, but specifically meta-analysis, it's quite new. It's an emerging subject. All right. Apologize for the photo. It's different from myself because the photo I took it starting. I think it was starting of my PhD, and now I'm starting off my lecturing. So it's about 7 years time. So you see the differences of being a PhD. All right.
The effect of PhD.
The effect of the PhD and the effect of COVID.
Okay.
Right. Without further ado, because this is a topic where it is an extensive topic, I'm trying to cover the main blocks of this research topic, and I try to show you how I do a meta-analysis on OIC stock market. And right now I try to share the screen of mine.
Yes, please. Yes, we
Have
can
you
see.
seen the screen?
Yeah, we see now. Yes, you can also present it. Just um, yes, you can make it. You can maximize it if you want. Yes, perfect.
Do you see the
Yeah.
on my screen the video of the picture of each of the participants?
Yes, yes, we see both actually. Yeah, the picture of the participant and yourself.
All
Yes,
right.
thank you.
Okay. Without further delay, I will start today's seminar. And today we are going to talk about application of a meta-analysis in economics and finance research. And I will also do a case study on OIC stock market. All right. By the way, I'm from Department of Economics. We have economic and management sciences. All right, this is the outline of today's seminar. We talk about what is meta-analysis. Some of us knows about meta, some of us knows about analysis, but putting it together, it's a strange word. Okay, then we talk about what is the difference between systematic review and meta-analysis. Most of us have done systematic review or a sort of a systematic review like literature review. Then we talk about types of meta-analysis. The major methodology used in meta-analysis. Then we talk about why we do the meta-analysis. What matters for us to do a meta-analysis. Then I give you a picture overlook on the current trend of meta-analysis in economics and finance. And then I introduce the major steps that we need to follow to do a meta-analysis. There are guidelines given by the industry players. Then at last I share the case study on OIC countries stock market. All right, first of all, let's see what is meta-analysis. To make it simple, it is analysis of analysis. All right, it is analysis of analysis. From this, so we can see that the meta-analysis is a quantitative synthesis or quantitative summary of the data that we retrieved from a literature, from a pool of literature. All right. So since it is based on a pool of literature, the pool of literature normally we refer it as a systematic review. All right. So this is how graphically how it looks like. First of all, when we want to explore a topic, we will do a literature review. A comprehensive literature review, we will try to retrieve articles, which is a primary research. We call in the meta-analysis, by the way, the article we collected from the database or website is called as a primary literature. This primary literature systematic review needs to cover a comprehensive pool of the topic from different resources. How comprehensive it is, we will talk in the stages of doing meta-analysis. All right, a systematic review collect the articles, a pool of articles, and from each of the article, there is a particular subject, a common subject we want to look into. For example, what is the effect? Does FDI promotes economic growth? Does FDI promotes economic growth? So the subject we are looking at is the relationship between FDI, foreign direct investment, and economic growth. So that is the subject we are looking to. The study 1, 2 to study N are the studies talking about the relationship between FDI and economic growth. Of course, this study, since we are going to do a quantitative synthesis, the study 1, 2, 3, and so on are the quantitative studies. They have to empirically look into the relationship between FDI and economic growth. Then we retrieve from each article the relationship between FDI and economic growth, sum it up using a meta-analysis. I will tell you what is the meta-analysis later on, what are the methods. So it put in the box of a meta-analysis, come up with a cumulative statistics that tells about, as a whole, does FDI promotes the economic growth? So this is the overview. All right, this gives you an idea about what is the meta-analysis, how it extended from individual literature to systematic literature review to meta-analysis. Then how it comes into a picture, how the meta-analysis came into the picture. All right, it didn't come into economics or finance in the first place. It was originated from medical research. As we know, medical research like COVID, antigen, COVID medicine, this medicine needs thousands of tests, clinical trial tests. But testing it is monetarily costly and time consuming. All right, to make it more efficient, medical research experts came into a conclusion that meta-analysis, which is to reproduce the statistic from a relatively small research area, can produce a relatively reliable result on the effectiveness of the medicine. All right, so we know when the sample size is too small, the standard error will be higher, so the result will not be so reliable. Meta-analysis reproduce the small sample sized problem and then produce a relatively more reliable statistics. Okay, the relationship between systematic review and meta-analysis, as we can see, they have some common ground where a systematic review is, we can call it as a qualitative, which means it summarizes the article. It covers almost every angles of the research area, but it doesn't give a statistical testing on a particular subject. All right, so it is a qualitative. It gives an overview. It gives a report on who does what and how it has been done. But meta-analysis is the extension of a systematic review, where it not only summarizes about what has been done, it also tells about the overall from the past research, what is the general conclusion, and why studies differ from each other. All right, so that we will say after comparing systematic review with the meta-analysis, we know that not all the systematic review will be meta-analysis, but to have a meta-analysis, the foundation is we need to have a comprehensive and a systematic review. That is the foundation of doing a meta-analysis. Another requirement for meta-analysis is the articles which we collected from the pool of resources needs to be sufficiently similar, which means we can't talk about the relationship between FDI and growth while we are looking at the articles from FDI and what's called quality of life, for example. So it needs to be sufficiently similar, not so different from each other. The subject itself needs to have a common ground. This gives you an overview on how a meta-analysis result looks like, right? This is not my research because my research doesn't have all this. I'm showing to you from the article that I'm referring to. So the left side is the information about the article, study or subgroup. The left side is we call it the study design. All right, the information about the studies. or about the articles we have collected. Then we have this odds ratio. This is since this is a medical paper, they use odds ratio as statistics that we look into. This is the information. The odds ratio from each of the paper is the statistics that we need to extract from the empirical research. All right. And standard error and weight. Weight, there is a formula for 1 over the standard error to get the weight weighted. And it comes into the a pooled effect size. For example, here 1.05 is the pooled effect size, where we tell that overall from the past research, from all the article we have collected on the error, the effect size or the statistic about the relationship we want to examine, the statistic is 1.05. All right, so that how it looks like overall. I mean, in the case study, we will have a example that are more relevant to us. But for this graph is for us to know that how the meta-analysis result looks like. And the right side of the graph is a forest plot. It shows the dispersion of the result. Dispersions of the result. Here, there's a heterogeneity test and overall test. All this we will be discussing in the later part of the seminar. And the objective of doing this meta-analysis research is to quantitatively synthesize the empirical evidence. Okay, and it is to explore the differences between study results. Because we have seen so many topics that people says FDI promotes the economic growth. Some says FDI have backward slash on the economic growth. So there are different opinions on the same topic. So meta-analysis, another objective of meta-analysis is to look into the differences from the study and find out why studies differ from each other. Does it because is it because of the methodology they are using are different? Is it because of the data they are selecting is from different period of time? Or is it because of what call it publication biasness? Some study published in the reputable journals needs to have a positive significant result. So researchers tend to manipulate the data to get a favorable result. So that will be tested from meta-analysis as well. So it will test whether there is a publication biasness, whether a researcher tend to manipulate the result to generate a promising, significant relationship. Okay, then why we need to do a meta-analysis? Why we need to do a meta-analysis? We need to do a meta-analysis, sorry. Why we need to do a meta-analysis? All right, this we try to connect to the current age that we are living in. We are in the age of big data. All right, big data means there are huge volumes of data available in the market. All right, it's in the academia's world. The data that we are using for empirical analysis is huge. And there are so many empirical research output available in the database or online. So because of this abundant data available in the market, it has 3 characteristics: volumes, velocity, and the variety. Because of so huge volumes of data available in the industry, it makes the researcher to easily conduct empirical research. And it makes the research time duration to be shorter. And because the data is from every angle and from different resources and with different time interval, the result tend to different. So the volume wise, we have abundant result coming out or published in the journal or in the database or online. And each of the empirical research, rather than doing it for 6 months, 1 year time like before, now because the data is so available, you can just click and download. The time spent to publish an empirical research paper is relatively shorter time than before. And because of this large amount of data and convenience of doing empirical research, the research design tend to different from each other. So the result of even a common topic tend to have inconsistent result. Okay. Because of this, then we are facing a problem that we are not sure what is known in a subject. Coming back to the topic of FDI and economic growth, we thought we know FDI is good for economic growth. This is why countries are inviting foreign investors to invest in the country. We thought we know, but do we really know based on the current pool of available empirical research? Do we really know that it is a positive relationship? We don't. And after looking into all the pools of the researches available on the topic, we tend to confuse. We became so confused. Some says yes, some says no, some says this will affect. And all these are the factors that result in different research result. Then the question comes, what is the significant driver on the variety of the empirical research? What makes empirical research different from each other for the same topic? Sometimes even same subject, same country, sometimes. So this is the issue we're facing. We're facing big data, and we're facing, and because of the big data, it's difficult for us to know a subject. What do we know about the subject? And it's difficult for us to know why the subject testing result differ from each other so much, and how we can address this issue. Then we address this issue through meta-analysis. And this tells us, because of the issue we are facing, to address the difficulty we are facing, meta-analysis is introduced. Okay, why meta-analysis matters to economic finance research? Because it brings 4 potential benefits: precision, synthesis, heterogeneity, reliability. Precision because it is comparing to a single study, comparing to a single research paper that's writing on FDI and economic growth. Meta-analysis pulls the available research on the topic from different resources. Okay, it can be hundreds of the articles on FDI and the growth to come up with the conclusion that whether FDI promotes the economic growth, right? So it is rather than one single study, it tests from a pool of the research to come up with a cumulative result. Second, it is in comparing to the qualitative review, which is systematic review. It tells about what study report on what. Meta-analysis quantifies the relationship. It quantifies, it tells you based on the collected article, the relationship between FDI and the economic growth is significantly positive or significantly negative or extra. All right, so then synthesis, before it was a precision. Now we talk about synthesis. Meta-analysis is, first of all, a systematic review. So when we are collecting all the available articles on a subject, a synthesis, what has been done, synthesize what has been done. It helps you to uncover the important findings on the subject. Heterogeneity, okay. After we found out, after we look into the subject, we found out that the past research on topic varies so much. And then it came into the mind that we want to know what are the determinants on the differences. Does it because of the country we are looking at is different? Developing country, developed country, does that matters? Does the matter about economic growth, the measurement of economic growth, does it matters? That gives, by having advanced version of meta-analysis, which is a meta-regression. Meta-regression is more like what we did in ordinary least square or multivariate regression model. It puts all the moderators or factors in the model to test what are the factors significantly changes the effect size. So it explains about what matters for the variability of the study outcome. And last, most of the economics research, we test about reliability, meta-analysis as well. It tests about the reliability by filtering out the biasness, as I mentioned just now, misspecification bias and publication bias. Misspecification bias, they did it by subgrouping these studies, take those outliers and then re-regression to see the ANOVA test, what is the differences about the result. And publication bias, there are tests we will talk about later about the method, how we detect publication bias and how we remove the publication bias. So by having meta-analysis, as we see, we can improve the precision of the research. We can synthesize the topic to uncover the important finding. We can explore the significant determinant on the variability of the study outcome. And we can improve the reliability by filtering out the biasness. Okay, there are three major types of meta-analysis: classical, meta-regression, and the meta-analytic structure equation model. Most people are using classic meta-analysis as the first stage to determine cumulative weighted average of the testing subject relationship. Okay, it's a put it simple, is like taking the statistics on the relationship between dependent variable and independent variable using weighted least square weighted average model to come up with the cumulative statistics on the relationship. So this is a relatively easy starting of the meta-analysis. When we are doing along the way we are doing the meta-analysis, we have to find whether which testing model we are using for performing the meta-analysis. Either is fixed model or random model. Students from economics panel data model, we are choosing fixed model, random model. Similarly, meta-analysis also have a random model, a fixed model. So the model we are choosing depends on the homogeneity of the statistics. When between study differences are too much, between study result, between study statistic result are different too much, then it introduces the meta-regression analysis. A meta-regression analysis look into all the study design difference like which year they are publishing the paper, where they publish the paper. Is it in the reputable journal or it is in the online? Is it does it look into a developing country, a developed country? What is the frequency of data? Is it a low frequency or high frequency? Okay, all the, it use least square method or use wavelet or copulars or advanced model to test it? Or does all these matters to the result? Meta regression analysis, we're looking into this to see does each of the study design matters for the between study difference. Then based on the classical and meta regression model, currently there is advancement of a meta-analysis that is to apply structure equation model on the meta-analysis to test about the model design. For example, finance always do that. Success factor of the technology venture company. For example, success factor of the fintech companies. For example, then there are success factor. There are factors that have a direct relationship, and there is a moderators. So to test the moderator effect in the model, structure equation model is building up on the regression model to see the design of the construct. It can be a higher construct with 2 level or 3 level. So that is the application mostly used for management research, finance research areas. This gives you an overlook on the research trend of meta-analysis in economics and finance. The reason why I show you is because it tells you that meta-analysis is picking up in economics and finance, and it is the area where we can easily publish papers. As we can see, most of economic research on meta-analysis starting from 2012, and in finance it started recently. After 2017, it started picking up quite often. And this data is based on the article published in the ISI journal and at least the Scopus journal. All right. Okay, I'm giving you an example on how meta-analysis looks like. The topics of the meta-analysis in economics. For example, the first, you can read later on. I'm giving you one of the 2 topics that motivate me to do some areas of the economic research. One is determinants of the foreign direct investment in transition economy. All right, factors influencing the FDI. Okay, this is a huge topic. Then this is a good way of zooming down to a transition economies. Right, collect articles on FDI and collect articles that for FDI concerning about transit economy, emerging economies. All right, this is one of the interesting topic. And the second is financial development and economic growth. So there is this nexus on financial development and economic growth. This is the puzzle that always we want to answer. So this is the second example I want to raise your focus. With regards to finance, I find this is interesting. Efficiency in banking, meta regression analysis. The reason why they use meta regression analysis is because they look into the factors that what determines or what are the drivers of the efficiency in the banking system. Right? It tests about which one gives a significant effect on the efficiency of the banks. The second one, firm size and the stock return. And currently, I'm trying to look into the development of the increasing numbers of the fintech company and the stock return of the banks to see whether fintechs is constructive or it is destructive. Okay, come back to what I want to research on. Okay, currently the meta-analysis based on the finance one, this topic, finance firm size and the stock return. I extended to my research, where I want to look into the rule, the effect of the fintech, okay, financial technology. There's a financial technology promotes a better performance of the bank, or it is destructive, or it makes the banks to be less competitive. Okay, so to do that, I look into the numbers of a fintech company registered in Malaysia, and the stock performance of the banks to see the relation. I mean, there are so many articles writing about the fintechs, the relationship between fintechs and banks' performance or banks' efficiency. It just depends on how you measure the bank's performance. So that is the extension of the research that I got the idea from this article, firm size and stock return. Okay, this is an idea on the meta-analysis, how it applies in economics and finance. Then how do we do a meta-analysis? All right, we have 5 building blocks. That is based on this fundament, we call it the key studies on meta-analysis. The references are attached at the back of the seminar PPT. So when you want to read more about meta-analysis, later on you can go back to the references to read. Okay, this 5 building block. First, you have to define a research subject. Define research subject means what are the relationship you want to look at, and what is the dependent variable you are looking into. Okay, research subject. We will see how it applies from my past research. Stage 1, we have to establish a research subject. And step 2, we have to search the relevant studies, primary studies from the available database. And then we have to extract the estimate or extract the relationship from each individual study to come up with a cumulative result, which is in here, in meta-analysis, we call the relation that we are looking at as effect size, because it's not the correlation. It is a transformation of the correlation. Sometimes it can be a mean difference. Sometimes it can be a partial correlation. Sometimes it can be an elasticity. So in meta-analysis, this parameter that we are looking at, or the variable that we are looking at, is named as effect size. Stage 4. Then after we have coded each effect size from individual study, we will need to synthesize or summarize it through meta effect size. Then we test about significance of the meta size on the stage 4 report, based on stage 4 report. Okay, how do we do? What software we use for meta-analysis? Here there are SAS, Stata. SAS, I don't think we finance economics student can do programming. R is a quite good one that if you haven't tried R, you try to read about R. It's quite practical. I mean, it's not for those who have no coding background. R is still user friendly as long as we know the steps how to perform R analysis. All right. So what I'm using currently is a comprehensive meta-analysis. This is the software I'm using. Previously, when I was doing the earlier research, it was free, but recently it's not free. But what I did is I collect all the articles. I code each of the articles information into spreadsheet. I start with the spreadsheet. Of course, you have to do according to the format required by the comprehensive meta-analysis, which you can read from the website. We code it each individual studies in the Excel, and comprehensive meta-analysis give you 7 days of trial. So after I code all this into the spreadsheet, within 7 days, I have to come up with the result to use the trial version, right? That is student life. Free lunch, 7 days.
Is it expensive? Is it expensive, Dr. Ali?
If we, as academician, we want to use a professional one because the size of the sample might be bigger. So it cost us about $400 for 1 year. For 1 year, standard version is about $300 around.
Okay.
But to start with, we can use this RevMan. This is also a software, but it's a free. It's a free RevMan. It is a free software for meta-analysis. Comprehensive meta-analysis. If you have used, if you have tried SPSS or eViews, you will know that this is interface friendly. You just click, you specify the layout, the method you want to use, and you upload the information, and it's user friendly. It's interface based. So comprehensive meta-analysis is easy to read, easy to do. RevMan is kind of, you have to design your own effect size. All right, so one of the importance we need to notice is when we are selecting articles, the data we transform into Excel at least needs to have a study identifier. A study identifier, for example, name, year, the title, the journal where you publish. Is it a journal, or is it a book, or it is an online resource, is a report? Because journal tend to, people says, I mean, meta-analysis researcher commonly believe that journal paper tend to have publication biasness, where we have to report a significant positive relation to be accepted by some journals. So study identifiers is one of the important information we need to code into spreadsheet. Effect size, as I mentioned to you, effect size, different study have different type of effect size. If we're looking into a correlation, the relationship between FDI and economic growth, then the effect size could be Pearson correlation, can be partial correlation. So effect size defines differently based on your research area. And the measure of the error, standard error. These are this minimum requirement for you to code. Okay, then there are two major methods for coming up a cumulative empirical result. Just now, if you can still recall, we take matter effect, which is a statistics correlation, for example, correlation from FDI and economic growth research. We take this correlation from each individual study. We need to come up a cumulative result to conclude whether FDI promotes the economic growth. That is called meta effect size, or we call it pooled effect size. So this pooled effect size, how we come into the pool, cannot be just summarizing by averaging it, cannot. What we do is more like, as I mentioned, more like a panel regression model. We have to see if fixed effect size model matters, is more suitable, or random effect size is more suitable. Okay, these are the two major ones. Normally, we will choose random effect size because fixed effect size assumes there is one true effect size, one true relation that exists among all the studies, which means the study result across different, the result from different empirical research on the same subject tend to conclude same result. Okay, the homogeneity is significant. Okay, Of course, there will be a test. I will talk about the test later. But fixed effect size normally is not so popular. Most of the study will look into the random effect size because study tend to differ from each other. The result tend to different from each other. So the reason why it differs from each other is because between study differences. All right. So random effect size are quite popular for doing meta-analysis. Okay, that is the background about meta-analysis. Do I have enough time?
Okay, you can proceed, Dr. Ali.
Oh,
it's interesting. Yeah, no problem.
You can
Okay.
proceed, yeah, please.
Yeah, just proceed.
Okay. All right.
Thank
So we talk about how I apply meta-analysis on financial contagion in the stock market for OIC country. This gives you a head up on step by step how I did meta-analysis. First of all, for those who doesn't know about financial contagion, just a brief background. Financial contagion is different from financial interdependency. Okay, to make it more simple, financial contagion is more like COVID. Okay, COVID-19. It's a contagion. So there is no fundamental relationship between crisis transmitted from one country to another country. There is no fundamental relation. Fundamental can be either trade relation or investment relation. These are the two common ones, or political bloc, for example, European unions. Okay, those are the fundamental relations. Fundamental relation of the market tend to interrelated with each other. It's called integration, financial integration. All right, there is interdependency. So most of this transmission is based on the fundamental economic relations. Financial contagion is more like a surprise. Okay, you don't know what happens. Why suddenly, for example, Maldives have financial crisis, then affects Malaysia. You don't know why suddenly affects Malaysia. But if it really happened, right? Similar like the COVID-19 cases, you don't know how a particular person never go out from house got affected, right? It's by surprise. There is no fundamental relationship between a person who is infected and the clusters of the COVID. All right, so it's more contagion is more like epidemic. Is a medical term. All right, so this is the background of a financial contagion, and we look into the stock market of OIC countries, right? Because the reason why I zoomed down to OIC countries is because if I look into all the countries, the study will be thousands, right? So I have to zoom down. Then I give you about rationale how I did this research. First, I have to identify a research topic, right? So then whether it is meta-analysable, whether it is possible to do a meta-analysis on the topic, it have to come into two requirements. First, there is inconclusive evidence, or there is a pool of research is studying this topic, a pool of research available studying this topic. Okay, for me, when I look into the articles on the subject, it tend to have inconclusive evidence, which means it's not so sure about either financial contagion is significantly present on OIC countries or not. All right. Then second, since the result is different, and the study design are also so much different. Some look into only Malaysia, Indonesia. Some look into GCC. Some looks into Islamic stock market index, which is just a proxy of the index. So the study design also different. So is it because of this study design difference result in these different findings? So that triggers my interest on studying the financial contagion on OIC countries using meta-analysis. So then I have to answer, the question that I want to answer is whether there is a significant phenomenon of financial contagion in OIC countries. So I further filtered to the research question by defining it to be after 1990s. After 1990s. Okay, then I also want to know whether it is estimation method, because we as the economics department or finance department, we know that currently the empirical research method tend to improve every day. Okay, there's a new method. We've led copulars, all these engineering methodology are used in finance and economics. So we cannot, every day is evolving. So does the estimation method a significant driver for the different result findings on the subject? I want to know whether a research methodology matters. Then the objective is so on is based on research question and statement. Then the contribution is important, because people questions about meta-analysis because it says it is just a literature review. Yes, it is a literature review, but for normally you will see your study is the first one in the subject, because not so many people are doing it. Okay, this is one of the things, but it's not most important. The most important is you contribute on the comprehensive bibliography, and you contribute on the theory design. Okay, the design of the theory. For example, the determinant of the bank's efficiency, the determinant of a bank efficiency. There are so many determinants. Without a comprehensive literature review, without comprehensive meta-analysis, you really cannot tell which one is so important. So it helps to build a theoretical design, and it helps to give you a cumulative answer on does the topic matters. Finally, we will be able to answer, does it matters? If it matters, what affects the result differ? Okay, then I use, in my research, I use classical meta-analysis. Just now I mentioned to you, there are three major meta-analysis. One is the classical, one is meta-regression. The last one is the structure equation model. Structure equation model mostly are used for, primary data research, like using questionnaire, using factor model to come up with the determinants or the factors. That one is related to the model construct or model design. It tells about the higher levels of the construct, whether a moderator is important for the model or not. So since I'm doing economic research, in this paper, I didn't use a structure equation model. So this gives you on the overlook on how I carry out the analysis. Okay, first, I define the subject. I define subject, I have to define what is the financial contagion. Okay, as I mentioned, to contagion is more like a surprise. Okay, it's not a fundamental economic relation. It is a surprise. So surprise is a significant sudden increase. Okay, significant increase of the global movement. All right. So this is a definition. It's just an example. All right. It's just an example. Example that when you want to do the research, you have to confine the research topic. Confine the research topic means you have to know your dependent variable, the subject or the effect size you want to look or attract from each individual empirical research. Okay, that is the defining dependent variable. Then after you have a defined variable, then you started doing the research. You have started doing the comprehensive literature search. How can we make sure that it is comprehensive, right? Comprehensive in the way that, there are arguments that either we search everything available. Everything available means it's a published paper. It is either it is a published paper, it is journal paper, it is ISI scoper, or it is just online report, or it is just an individual's research interest. All right. So that is a most comprehensive one is this, but it's difficult, right? It's difficult. So most of the researcher, to make sure it is comprehensive, will at least look at the major database. For example, in my research, I use both the Web of Knowledge, ISI database, and the Scopus database. Okay, we came into the when we are doing research, we came into this experience. When we are reading one article, so that article is so good, and then we go back to the references of the article. Then we realize there is a better article than this one, can be our references. So that comes into the picture. Cross-reference checking. That is to make sure that the research done earlier than the time frame that we have defined might be good for us to include it in. All right. So normally we do two steps. One is based on database, and the second is based on cross-reference checking on the selected articles. Okay, selected article. How do we select the article, whether it is a good or not good, or include or not include? Then you have to have a criteria. For me, my research is on financial contagion. So the keywords of the searching, I have to use contagion, financial contagion. Sometimes they call financial spillover, all this. And since I'm looking into OIC stock market, I have to use the criteria of OIC, okay, and stock market. Then I have to look into the empirical study, because I try to extract information from the research, from empirical research. If it's a qualitative research, I won't be able to it won't give me more insight. And then I have to look into the definition, whether the definition is similar with my definition, because definition matters. Okay, once I apply this criteria, I will be able to get a pool of articles. Then after having a pool of articles, what I did next is to look into title first, whether the title is relevant. Then after title is look into the abstract. See the abstract explains the similar things is consistent with the requirements of the research or not. Then once by doing these two rounds, you will be filtering out at least 30 or 40% of your articles. Then later on, you will be looking to the reporting, statistical reporting of the article to see whether the required statistic, for example, the sample size, the reported effect size is the coefficient, or it is not a coefficient. Does the standard error, is the standard error given? If all these are not given, then even though it's empirical research, you cannot come with a meta-analysis, because you have to retrieve not only the effect size, but also the standard error sample size to do a weighted average, to assign a weight to each estimate. And then after done this meta-analysis, you will see that there are significant differences across studies. And then I apply meta-regression to identify what are the factors result in the differences of the reporting. Okay, these are all statistical explanation on the effect size. I define my effect size as the significant increase of the return. So there is a crisis period time and tranquil period time. I transfer Fisher Z value because I want it to be stationary, right? Then I reported totally 35 articles has been used. Out of 35 articles, there are 401 estimate, because some research test not only one country, I mean it's 5-6 countries. All right, then meta effect size, this total effect size is the meta effect size, pool effect size. Okay, just now I mentioned we either use a fixed effect estimator or random effect estimator, right? To decide this, we are going to use a homogeneity test, Q test, all right, Q test. Normally the Q test will reject homogeneity because studies tend to differ from each other. Normally it will use a random effect. All right. Okay. After random effect tested, we know that across the study there is a significant differences on the result. So we will be looking into whether there is publication biasness. Okay, publication biasness through graphic approach is a funnel plot, or from statistical approach from agar test. That one I can show you from here. Okay, just now I skipped the meta regression. See, the meta regression is more like what we did in the economic and finance research, where it is a multivariate regression model, similar like that. So S and M is a studied S and M is a studied specific differences and model specific differences. All right. Because my objective was to test whether estimation method matters. All right. You can have a different design. This publication bias left side is the funnel, funnel plot. Right side is the agar regression. When we see the funnel, if they systematically dispersed along this dashed line, it is there is no normally it indicates there is no publication bias. Okay. Second, if there are dots, for example, if you can follow my pointer, if this dot, the left side leftmost, this leftmost, these four, we can call it as outliers. Okay, outliers. So when we want to improve our reliability of the testing, normally we have to see whether by removing this one by one, it improves your testing result. Okay. Okay, the agar regression test also shows whether publication biasness is significant. As we can see, p-value testing over here, it's not rejected, it's insignificant, which means publication biasness is not significant in this research. All right, so this is the data. Then this is the conclusion of the research that we found significant pooled financial contagion. How? By see here, random effect size. We see that the p-value is zero, and the z statistic is 13.81. So the p-value null hypothesis reject. So it is significant. And significant biasness. Okay, then the findings of the research you can read from this conclusion. These are the four key references that I'm using for today's seminar. If you want to read more about what's going on of meta-analysis in economics, what happens for finance industry, then you can read from these references. Okay, since today is a Friday, I won't drag the seminar too long. If we will proceed to Q&A if there is any. Let me see, there is a question I have came across a few recent.
All right, I will just, are you done, Dr. Ali?
Yeah, I have done. If there is any questions from the floor, please feel free to ask.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali. You know, for very good sharing. You know, it was really detailed explanation. You gave it. It's like a hands-on workshop. You know, you gave us all sort of informations. Especially for that's the reason why I particularly wanted to invite the postgraduate students of our faculty, our department. I hope I can see most of them, alhamdulillah, attending this. Our number is going up to 37 to 38. Alhamdulillah. I also see the participants coming, mashallah, all around the world. I can see some horizons of this the time coming. Probably now is the midnight there, but still they are attending this. I also see some special guests coming from outside. Mashallah, Dr. Turkhan is here. All right, so thank you very much, Dr. Ali, for this wonderful session. it's a very good start that we actually later if you can also if we have any requests from postgraduate student, later we can do some workshop on this, let's say the comprehensive meta-analysis, right? So like using the software, and then you also said there are some free software to do that. So most probably we can discuss with postgraduate unit. I think Brother Mohibullah is here, can take this, he can take this information and arrange some workshop with Dr. Ali later on for students. So now I have to open the floor. So I'm opening the floor for questions. Let me just, okay, Dr. Ali, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I think I answer. This is the screen I'm sharing, right?
Yeah, we see
okay.
the whole computer. We see your whole.
I want to answer this question first because this is a very good question that I have been asked during my defense or even my publishing my journal. They were also asking the similar question. Okay.
Okay.
This Dr. Mayudi, right? Dr. Mayudi was asking whether it can be done by Islamic economic topic. Okay. Whether meta-analysis can be done on a subject not. First of all, we have to do a systematic review. Okay, we cannot just straightforward say we can or cannot do. So we do a systematic review, then we will see that whether there is a significant amount of the empirical research, because what we are looking at is empirical research evidence, come up with a conclusion that can indicate the errors of the research. As you rightly mentioned, Islamic economics, not so many writing on that. That is the reason why we need to do meta-regression analysis, meta-analysis, to give a more insight on the building blocks of the Islamic economics. Similar, like I mentioned to you, in the research that particularly on the finance side, the research exploring the determinants of the financial performance, that areas of research, some of the area of the research on the model design also are in the infant stage. So they don't have enough empirical research. But among the empirical research, even the limited one, the results are not so not same, are different a lot. So they use meta-analysis to identify the differences, and then to identify the direction of the future research, or the suggestion on the model design of the future research. Because when we are writing individual Islamic economic papers, we write from individual researcher's point of view. We cannot, we doesn't pull enough references to give you the supporting evidence on the direction suggestion. With regards to the numbers of the research, numbers of research needed. Okay, I was questioned about, challenged about this when I submitted my first journal paper on meta-analysis. It was only 12 articles. 12 articles.
12.
Okay, so the rule of thumb, if I'm not mistaken, is 10 articles. But that one I have to go back and check, because I published 12 articles means it is acceptable, right? I will share with you the references. So
the limitation, there is no limitation, like this should be the number.
There's a limitation. There's a limitation, but it's not like we need to have a 30, 40, 50. No, I mean 10, 20 articles, as long as it is empirical research. It is doable.
Any minimum requirement?
As I mentioned, 10 articles should be okay, because I published with the 12 articles.
Okay, good. All
So
right.
I have the query for the Ali. Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for our seminar coordinator Dr. Aslam Akbar for organizing this seminar. It's very interesting. Okay, because we know that meta-analysis is currently getting popular. But in addition to this meta-analysis, we also have this bibliometric analysis as well. And then also we have the systematic analysis. Okay, sometimes I still remember when me and Prof. Jarita, we joined this meta-analysis workshop organized by the CPD last time. Okay, we are excited. Actually, we want to apply this one in the Islamic economics. But when we attend the workshop, we found that this meta-analysis is more applicable for the empirical results basis articles. And it really, I don't want to say it's demotivate, but if we feel like, oh, how come? Because we want to apply for the Islamic economics, wakaf and zakat. But still the chances is there. Okay, now my question is, well, how different this one between the bibliometric and systematic? Is it similar way, the way how we are doing it, or is it because of the tools?
Sorry,
my question is because meta-analysis is similar. I'm not sure whether it's similar to the bibliometric analysis. Have you heard about bibliometric, right?
Bibliometric analysis is tracing who is the key contributor, right?
But even in meta-analysis also we can do it, right? For the key contributors.
Yeah, can that is that is under the descriptive statistics. Is a one section under the meta-analysis.
Okay. How about the systematic analysis then?
Systematic analysis comes into is more like our literature review. Is more like our literature review, but it's comprehensive. We have to make sure that the relevant subject the relevant articles are all collected. By systematic, it has to be a comprehensive. The literature review, we can just pick that is important to us, right? We not necessary to search entire database, but systematic review, we have to identify the criteria, search all the relevant. There has to be a criteria for filtering, for acceptance or exclusion.
Okay. So these are the trend nowadays in the research. Okay, bibliometric research and systematic and also meta-analysis.
Yeah. Meta-analysis, because not many people are doing it.
It's not easy. It's not. It's easy actually. We focus it and then we can do it. Except that we have to collect a lot of articles. We have to synthesize the articles. We have to collect all the results. We have to put it in such a way, and then we have to learn their software as well.
Yeah. So the reason why I came across this meta-analysis was because I was on the way of doing my literature review section of my dissertation. Then I want to make sure that all the past paper on this I have collected, right? I want to know about this subject. So I came across this one. I came across meta-analysis. Then my suggestion is, if we want to do a meta-analysis, we have to narrow it down, not so big. If it's a huge subject, so many determinants, it will be difficult.
Yes, exactly.
Let's say you want to do a wakaf, efficiency of the wakaf institute. I think there are enough empirical paper testing about efficiency, right? Or of the wakaf institute, or the pricing method of the Sharia compliant companies, right? For example.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asmi. I think because we recently saw there is a trend also using the bibliometric, especially in Waqaf and Zakat. We received few papers in our journal. So I think that's a relevant question. Also, I see the other two. One is Brother Wan Omar, and also another one from Sister Siti Fatima. I think you have answered their questions as well. I think it's somehow.
Sister Fatima's question is good because
Yes.
There is a confusion on you are analyzing based on what, right? We are analyzing based on the result of the empirical research, of the result. We are extracting the result from the primary empirical research. Primary in the sense that we are collecting their article, we extract the information from the article, then put it together to do the analysis. So it has to be empirical, yes. Otherwise, it will call as a systematic review. If it's not empirical, it is a systematic review. Anything, any more questions?
That's good. That's good. I still open the floor. Please come in. Anyone? I think.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Prof. Please.
Dr. Ali, just asking that if you are looking at a specific topic, for example, and you try to find a sort of like a coefficient, right, for you to combine of all the literature. So what happens if the statistic is not the same? Some probably use logic statistic or estimation, or the others just use multiple regression, and the others might using probit, or how to make it standardized so that you can analyze to make a test.
Very good question, Prof. Okay. This is why in this research we call it as effect size, because there are so many methods to transfer this estimate, the estimate from primary resources. I can't in this workshop I cannot explain to you to all. What I can say in short is, yes, there are different formulas to transform even odds ratio, binomial data, multivariate regression analysis data into a standardized test statistics. That's why we don't call it a coefficient or mean difference. We call it effect size, because there is a transformation mechanism to transfer the different method and different reporting format to a standardized one.
Also, it means that you have to have the software in order to transform it, right?
It can be done by manually from Excel, but if we have the software, it will be easier. Yes.
Okay.
And this is why that just to add on, this is why even though the methods are different, it can be transformed into a standardized way. There is a requirement of a minimum requirement for the data available from the primary studies. For example, the sample size. It has to come up with a sample size. It has to given to you what is the sample size they are using. The test statistic has to be given. Is it a Z or a T or whatsoever? It has to be given to you the significance level that they are using. Is one side or two side testing. All this information has to be given. So the extraction of the data part is the most time consuming part.
Okay, another question. If you already got this transform effect size, can we use it to do another regression like panel data?
We don't do a panel data. You see this data we are collecting. For example, using example FDI and a group, the method people are using panel regression model, whatsoever, multivariate regression model. All these are using different reporting standards. We extract each studies. We extract the result from each studies, transform it as a matter effect size, using weighted average to calculate the summary data to tell whether there is a positive significant relationship between FDI and the growth rate. If yes or if no, or it's uncertain. Okay, that is
if you group the literature review into like region, different years,
yeah,
probably you can apply panel data, right?
Yeah, that is a good question. That is the second stage called panel meta regression. It tells this called study design factors, whether the study design factor matters for the results. That is a meta regression analysis. It's the second stage.
Thank you, Dr. Ali.
You're welcome, Prof.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Ali. May I,
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Nasrul, my sefu.
can I just ask a follow-up question to Prof. Jarita? I don't know whether
Sure.
you've kind of answered that question. Basically, because in the example that you used, you were comparing, or you were using the example of where we have one dependent variable and then you have potentially a few explanatory variables. What if the statistical method was slightly different? For instance, what I have in mind is, let's say, there are some empirical studies which compares two samples. The example that I have in mind, for example, there are a lot of research that compares the performance of, say, Islamic assets and the conventional assets. And right now, there's, based on my reading, there is quite a mix of empirical findings. Some will say the performance is similar, some is, one is superior than the other, and so on. And one way to explain this is because, these various studies have different methods, different samples, different time periods, and so on. So can we actually use this meta-analysis to kind of put things in perspective and sort of answer the question, why are we seeing these mixed results?
Okay, your question is very good. It extends into two aspects. One is analyzing the study design difference. For example, like what you say is one research testing same subject but two sets of data. This may have a correlation. I mean, inter-study correlation. That one can be addressed by subgroup testing. So this is one part. Just now you didn't mention, but this is to add on that we can use subgroup testing to address the problem of within study correlation. The question you mentioned about Islamic or non-Islamic, that is a factor or the design of the model. Okay, we normally have Islamic as a dummy variable, right? So that is the factor. The factor, same like Prof. Jarita said, that is a factor of the design where we will address the significance of this factor through meta-regression analysis.
I see. Okay, so in other words, you're saying it can be done, right? This meta-analysis can be used to address that kind of what we want to do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So maybe if I'm interested to go into this, I can sit down with you and get more kind of take lessons from you, or maybe bring you into the research.
Sure, let's work together, Sifu.
Inshallah.
All right, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasrul, and also previously Prof. Jarita for your questions. And we still have a few more minutes left, maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
Dr.
Yes,
Ali?
Prof. Salama.
Yes, Prof. Salama.
I just want to understand this. When you said you want to measure the effects, right?
Yes.
What was it, the word that you used?
Effect size.
The effect size. And you can convert basically, in a way you convert using different models, you can actually look at the effect size. So essentially this effect size by itself, there's really not really, I mean, the magnitude doesn't mean much. Am I right? It's just to see whether the effect is significant or not, and whether it has a positive or negative effect. Am I looking at it in the right way?
First of all, the magnitude matters. For the effect size, when we are doing the transformation of the effect size, there is one of the feature is to assign weight. The sample size, the model they are using, all these have a different particular implication on the weight to be assigned for a particular statistics. So when it put together as one effect size, after assign the weightage, it will have implication on the magnitude.
So how do we interpret the effect size? Because we are looking at perhaps studies that use different models. So what does it mean, the effect size?
Okay, let me try to give you an example of here. Like this one. Here, if we want to make it the study easier, to address this issue, in the very beginning, we have two choices. Either we can define the statistics that you are looking at. For example, this is a medical research. They look at the odds ratio. So there is no such a transformation mechanism.
Sorry, Dr. Ali, are you trying to show something? Or
there's no. It's
not there.
Do you want to share, Dr. Ali? Yes, go ahead. You just need to click on share. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you sharing?
Yeah. Am I?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay. There are two ways to do this. One way is by define the statistics that we are focusing on. For example, this study, they are looking at only the odds ratio. So there is no whatsoever transformation needed. But what I want to show you is there is a weight assigned based on the numbers of the size of the sample and the method they are using. So there is a weight assigned. How this study assigned, I'm not quite sure, but it shows you that each study have a weightage assigned. Then it gives you statistics, tells you for a particular relationship they are looking at, that is the effect size of that study. Based on this standard error and here this odds ratio, this interval, confidence interval testing, you will tell each of the individual effect size is significant or not. Then for transformation of the statistic into a standardized one, I can't show you from the screen. It is in the software where yes, you can have the similar result like this, where each of the study will be giving you one effect size. It tells you the magnitude and the significance.
Yes, but okay, from this one that you have given, this is fine because apparently they all use probably the same type of models, maybe logit or probit or something like that.
Yes.
But as you say, if we do the transformation, you know, if say, you know, as Prof. Jarita mentioned before, if you know, some use logit, some use you know, just the multiple regression, linear regression model, and so on. So when you do the transformation, the size effects, it will transform to what? And therefore, how do we look at the numbers?
Okay, for that specifically how it transfer, I will need to go back and study and explain to you. But I was taken as given. From the model, I used to just key in the peculiar parameters and the sample size and the method I use, as I mentioned. Then it automatically transfer into a standardized statistics for me to call it as effect size. But how the size matters, that one, yes, I need to go into details to find out.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Dr. Ali, I just want to jump in again, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Again, just triggered from what Prof. Salama mentioned, and
yes.
Again, Prof. Jarita. You know, in this transformation process that you speak of, is there an element of subjectivity and value judgment by the researcher in terms of when you want to kind of transform the data that you have to, you know, so that they are comparable and you can actually fit into the model? I mean, I'm just giving an example of, let's say, you know, in finance now, there's a lot of research that's using wavelet kind of methodology. So, you know, as you know, wavelet is graphical, right? So sometimes, you know, the interpretation is just by just looking at the chart, right? And how would you then transform that into numbers so that it becomes comparable with other studies that use more numbers, more specific numbers like coefficients and things like that. So what would that require? Some kind of subjectivity in terms of, okay, if the colors look like this, then this is the number I'm going to assign. In that way, so there's some kind of value judgment on the part of the researcher to say, how do I transform the data so that it becomes comparable and it fits into the model?
Okay, to answer your question, graphic demonstration cannot transfer into meta-analysis. It has to be statistical testing. As I mentioned, how improve the objectivity of subjectivity of the result. It is based on my understanding. It is through the weight assigned, and how, as Prof. Salama said, how this transfer the size, the magnitude to the result. That one I need to figure out. But I know it is. My understanding is a transfer from the weight assigned.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one goes to Dr. Riyasat.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali, for the presentation. It's a good way to try and move beyond, a systematic analysis of the literature.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify something. The way you controlled for quality of these studies, because like you said, the effect of variations, right, within different models will increase based on the variations employed by different papers, right? For example, methodology. And so let's say that you're in an area of limited literature, okay, and because of that, you're forced to go outside maybe the parameters that you set. Like, let's say we go outside Scopus and we have to go beyond that. And at the end of the day, it's a numbers game then, right? And I think maybe if there's not enough studies and we're forced to expand to kind of incorporate, maybe literature that is not necessarily qualified as high-end, technically qualified, I mean, that might actually lead to maybe substandard results. Is that correct?
To answer your question, as I mentioned, the best practice, according to meta-analysis, the best practice is to collect all the relevant empirical research, not necessary to be a journal paper, because as what the leaders of the industry believes that journal tend to accept papers that are positive and significant only. We rarely to see that research that insignificant result produce an insignificant, irrelevant result that are published, right?
Right.
So researchers tend to handpick and manipulate the data to achieve the result. So to make it short, yes, we can collect articles from reports, from as long as it is empirical. Because at the end of the day, each of the study design, one of the parameter you will be using is the type of the study. Okay, is it journal paper? Is it ISI journal paper? Is the journal paper from US? If the subject you're testing is example is Malaysia, and you publish in the Malaysia journal, maybe it affects your result. So all these article identifier needs to be included in the meta-analysis to see, does it matters? Does, for example, does the working paper matters? Or only the journal papers gives us a positive result? There are studies who says journal paper from the author's home country significantly affect the result of the relation we are looking at.
Okay, it's clear. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much for the question, Dr. Riyasat. And everybody else, mashallah, there were many questions and concerns and your comments. So I also share Dr. Ali's email address. If you have any questions, you can also what I see here is actually is that there is a way actually mostly the postgraduate student, they can actually communicate. I also see them, the participants, most of them, the postgraduates. I think this is a good way of engaging more and more in research, especially this meta-analysis. I hope we are coming to the end of the session, and I really first of all thank Dr. Ali for accepting to do this, because it was a quite short time. I had a different plan, but somehow it's been delayed. Then I wanted to ask you, and then you, Alhamdulillah, you happily accepted my invitation. And thank you so much for doing this. And also I would like to thank Dr. Muhammad Asmi as well for making this happen. And also everybody else, especially our department members, the professors, the doctors, and last but not least, our participants, because without your participation, there is no question and answer, there is no talk by Dr. Ali, there is no moderation by me. So thank you so much for being with us. I will see you inshallah very soon, probably in 2 weeks time. Till then, ma'as-salama. Let us finish our talk by recitation of Surah Al-Asr and Tasbih Kafara. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and all of you, Jum'ah Mubarakah.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Very interesting.
Thank you, Dr.
Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Dr. Ali.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Walaikum
Nice
salam.
to see all your face here.
Yes, Dr. Turkhan is here. MashaAllah.
Thanks, Dr. Hengchao. Nice talks. Good.
Okay, we expected you. You will ask some questions.
No, I'm a student. I'm a student. No.
Oh, MashaAllah. Thank you. Thank you very much for attempting. Jazakallah
Thank
khair.
you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All the best, all of you. Stay safe.
Yes, Dr. Hayatullah. Barakallah
Ali
feek.
is related to Turkhan. The feature look like similar. Is he his cousin or he's?
You can ask it. Both of them are here.
Dr. Turkhan Ali was my sifu. He was when he taught me which subject I forgot. Macroeconomics, intermediate macroeconomics for my